Folks, hello and welcome to the Random Party Generator. I am one of your hosts, one of your panel. That sounds overwhelmingly stupid, but yes. I am Eric Tenkar. With me, stage right, left, whatever, however that works out, is Rob Conley. And tonight, I'm sure he's happy when I'm going to say this, playing the role of Jim Kitchen, holding the show up with his very arms and shoulders, is none other than Greg Chubby Funster.
I got you.
There you
All
go.
right.
So, by the way, the slight delay in us coming live was I logged us into this afternoon's live streams slot, and there was, and then Flint joins in. So, you see, good thing that Flint got the right link because otherwise he would have been in an empty show.
Flint.
That was, uh, that's the confusion when you actually do two lives in one day. My God. So, Death Angel Michael Stengel, welcome. Welcome to Flint. He was nice enough to pop into the chat this afternoon when Glenn and I were doing the afternoon live. And Paul, welcome. Chubby, you're elusive. All right.
Yeah, I think he's saying I've been on a lot of shows lately, which is true, I guess.
Well, yeah. Well, listen, just being on Joe's show these days is being on a lot of show.
Hey, that was 4.5 hours with Joe.
All right. So,
And I want to point out, while he's not here,
mhm.
I did not have to get up to pee one time, and he took 3 bathroom breaks. That means I win.
Dude, I would have been. I would have needed it probably two at that point. At the very least one.
Are
And I
you
would.
making
I would have had to have avoided having this with me.
Are you making the claim that he has a tiny bladder?
Yes, that's why he cares so much about
Among other things.
I have one to drink
I have
from,
the
wait,
forbidden fruit.
one to pee in. There you go.
To be in my 40s.
You know, and
I turned 44 just a few days ago.
God bless you, man.
Oh,
I'm
Happy
catching up to you
birthday.
guys.
I turned 50. I turned 57 tomorrow.
Wow.
I told
But I look.
Wow. I was
I-
about to say, I thought it was 28.
yeah.
See, clearly.
I turned
clearly.
58 in July, and if it wasn't for this very gray hair, oh my God, I could be the flying nun.
I'm going to be getting a haircut next week before North Texas, Eric. I don't. You keep bringing this hair thing up. You know, I don't.
You know, we're actually toying with the idea of a midnight auction. Shave my head off. I mean, shave my hair off, not my head off. Shaving my head off might be
I
a bit.
use the hair shaver on my dog.
one too many head of Vecna there,
Yeah,
Eric.
just shave my head off. Why don't you? Death Angel, Chubby. I had a heart attack in my 40s. God,
Sorry
somebody
to hear
who-
that, brother.
my God, 5
Sorry
years.
to hear that.
5 years ago, I got released from the hospital after my congestive heart failure. Almost 5 years ago to the day. I think it was actually yesterday. So yeah. Heart. It's a very important thing. Elk, welcome. So we got a lot of stuff to talk about. By the way, Rob, when does your Kickstarter go live?
It's going to go live on May 28th on Joe's show, Wednesday evening.
All right. So the link on the bottom of the screen is a short link. By the way, the live streams are brought to you right now by Zach Laser. So love him, hate him. Zach's not doing this as part of his Frog God chief executive officer role. He's doing this in his personal I like the channel role. So thank you, Zach. But Rob's Kickstarter, 10cars-tavern.games/marches. You can get notified for launch. Just think of this as the non-toxic non-radioactive, non-steaming pile of shit, CSIO, kind of, sort of. You know,
Oh, wait. Let's really sell it for what it is. It's all through your guys' setting because I am going to release the text and the maps as open content under Creative Commons BY. So if you guys like it, you can make it your own. So
oh,
it's just not, my setting. I mean, the book with all the arts and stuff, that's going to be, still copyrighted by me, but I'm going to take all that text,
right.
put it in a separate Creative Commons document and the maps that you'll need and release it. And that way everybody can carve out their own little section of the majestic fantasy realms, and even got it divided up into grids traveler style.
Now, is this is Black Marsh any part of this, or is it
Yep,
adjacent to it?
yep. Black Marsh is right there.
Okay.
So it comprises these 4 maps, and so to show you what you guys are going to get.
It's not a reach around, folks. Don't get all excited.
No, it's so this is the 4 maps combined, and this is the actual size the map will print at on drive through. Now this is only one of them. This is the overview map that has all 4 combined, and that people familiar with Black Marsh can see that it's right here, the Smoking Bay and all. And then this is what the full size maps you get. 4 of these.
Damn.
And here are the other. So this is the Great Glacier, obviously, because that's the most important feature. This is the Wild North. This is Black Marsh.
Okay.
And all this down here is new. This is the Forsaken Desert. And if you look here, you see that there are sand dunes here. There's a so funny thing. I was looking at Google Maps to see how I should draw the deserts, and I looked and it was an area with a lot of dunes, and I looked at the scale and it said 5 miles. I said, no, that can't be. So I kind of like dragged the zoom over to that lower right corner and measured it. And I was like, oh my gosh, the dunes will show up on the map, on the 5-mile scale map. So these dunes are drawn to scale.
Damn.
Yep. And over here, this is the new part. This is Northport. This is the feudal realm, the westernmost duchy of the Grand Kingdom. And this whole area, the Gray Sea, is an undersea adventure. So any of you guys want to do undersea campaign, I got you covered here. And because, as you notice, all these maps meet up in the corner here, which can be a bit of a pain, even though they overlap. I guess there's going to be a 5th map that joins the 4 corners together. And then
Okay.
and those of you with Black Marsh will recognize it.
So, Rob, are you developing each hex to the degree that it's developed in Black Marsh? Is that kind of the standard?
Well, each not yes, it's each
Not
hex
every hex, but I'm saying like the hexes that you develop it's going to be like Black Marsh, like that. There'll be like a little key, like
right.
maybe 1 or 2 paragraphs, if I remember Black Marsh correctly, right?
Yeah, it's rarely one sentences. Some of the layers to say like there's a
Yeah.
pack of Shamara living here, but most are 1 paragraph, 2 paragraphs, or 3. And I cut myself out for 3 paragraphs. If I can't say it in 3 paragraphs, I kind of fiddle with the text and only hit the highlights. And,
Black Marsh sets the standard for a lot of people for like the degree to which you want to detail a hex.
Yeah.
Start putting way too much in there, and it limits the GM's ability to flex. So,
so
let me clarify.
So Paul asked a question. I recommend anybody. These are a little pricey, especially the bigger you get if you want to do your 22-inch by 34-inch maps. But these portfolios, my wife got me one. There's a black one sitting over there, and she got me that, and I thought, wow, that's nice, and I appreciated it. And then I started putting all my maps flat in it, and it's, you know what? It's a really good idea. So, I got I got some of my harm maps in here. I printed out a cop. Oops, that's not the big one. I found a high-res image of the Divine Right map, so I printed that out and put it in there. I got a Glorantia atlas, so I printed that in here.
Damn.
So all I can say, this is really handy, and it's just I think I have some, and what it's just these little plastic things that you carefully insert the map into.
Well, it's an atlas
Yeah,
basically, right? It's just your it's
true.
it's
Wrong end to hold up, hold down. But yeah, it's an atlas, and also for my I carried this one to the convention and kept all my because I can't carry my Dwarven Forge with me, so
Oh, yeah.
I kept all my handouts and my I printed out dungeon tiles like things for some of the adventures I run. It proved handy for that, just as long as you don't tip it this way.
and I can attest to what Chubby's saying too, because I have been following the Rob Connolly process.
Ooh.
I've watched some of these videos. Yes.
So, so as to how what you put in a hex, what you don't put in a hex, what's all those things, I can tell you that the struggle is real because you don't want to put too much. You could put too little, I guess that's fine. If you want to make it more wilderness and only have just a little bit of things there, but in doing the process, I only have 3 steps left. Really, I only have 3. I think I have 3 left. I got to do a video on that. But yeah, putting the process. In fact, I just did today. I got my village of Skyreach, which is my first little village that I put together through the process. So that is the first hex area that I put together. And this is, I made my own, talking about maps. There it is right there.
Oh.
Very nice.
Sophisticated graphics, Paul.
What's that?
Very sophisticated graphics. I like
Right. Very sophisticated. Whatever Canva offers me, that's what I'll take. But I try to find the good stuff. I try to find, I don't try to use janky stuff, but and putting the, and in the process of doing it, you want to make sure that you're, I'm understanding things like putting together the zine. You're like thinking about tone. You're thinking about, there's a lot of other things that probably I didn't think about before that I think about now. And so in the same process of putting together a hex or a map or a village, you have to think through those things. So that's my journey. I'm just trying to keep on pace with, what I'm trying to do.
And it overall, it had the structure in my book helped you.
Yeah, I think for me, and it depends. I think it depends on personality a little bit too, because my personality wants to go off the rails every 5 seconds. So for me to discipline myself and to actually think through the process of, okay, because you could just throw it in there. But what I'm noticing too is something I did not think that I would think of was the economics of my little world. Like, where's this bar get its, where do they get their drinks from? They're not near a river or anything. They don't have a distillery. They don't have, they can make corn mash or something like that. But I said, okay, well, that gives another reason to go over to another area, say Stone's Throw or River Haven or something like that, where they're near a river where they can make some of those things. And maybe it's another reason to journey, right? They bring deliveries over, and how the economics work, of my little world of Kriesh.
So it inspired you to make new content that you otherwise would not have considered.
That is correct.
Well, that's good. Well, looks like I did my job. So
you did.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about it, in a couple of weeks, right?
Absolutely, going to have you on. We'll talk through the process and talk about the Kickstarter and all that good stuff.
So the elk wants to know, where did you get prints that big? You kick the file.
You don't.
Rob.
Oh, Rob. Yeah.
Oh, yes. Just plunk down depending on if it's on sale, you can get it for like $500. If it's not, it's about 800. But
it's a printer.
It's called the Epson ET 8550, and even if you can't afford that, I recommend its little brother, which only do 8.5 by 11, but they use tanks for ink.
Yes, I have one.
I'm only on my second This is my second set in 2 years, you know, and
And Rob prints a
they're
lot.
still pretty full. Yeah, and, you know, I print those maps,
Yeah.
and but yeah, the ET 8550 will print up to 13-inch by 19-inch paper.
So Death Angel says they were only 1 year old when CSIO came out, and never had the opportunity to get it before. Is it all that bad that I'd still like to get a new one from Judges Guild? Now,
How good are the
um,
games?
listen, I used to when I went to the Complete Strategist when I was younger, in the late '80s, like early '90s. The whole level at your feet was all Judges Guild shit. And it was all dog-eared and bent over and it looked like shit, and they were still charging full price. And now, years later, I'm like, well, I should have picked it up. It would have been worth money. I do have the Mayfair Games version of it. Which,
Heresy.
hey, I got it because somebody posted on Craigslist that they had a D&D collection to sell. And I was like, oh, well, let me go see what they have, and drove out there, and that was part of it. And I felt he was asking $100 for like these two huge boxes, and I wound up giving him 200. And my apologies because his new wife was making him get rid of all his gaming stuff.
Oh,
Yeah,
that's all right. I mean, I gotta admit, it was the first gaming product I ever returned, like outright returned. Like, this is not City State. I mean, there was a little bit in it. However, I gotta say though, the adventures for that were pretty kick-ass. Still not City State, but they were pretty kick-ass adventures. I my friend got them, and we went through a couple of them and said, "This is pretty good." Where is? Yeah, it's from that City State thing you hate, Rob. And really, and I read it, and no, it was pretty good. It's just City State in name only. So,
well, admittedly now, I returned, and by the way, uh, returning RPG products was always like a verboten thing. Like you didn't do it; it had to be real shit for you to actually go back to a store that you were an established customer and say you sold me a piece of shit. I'd like to get credit. And in my case, that was Munster Coliseum for Avalon Hills RuneQuest, which
oh, there was
was
that. It was that bad.
it was that bad. There was no adventuring in it. There was nothing. It was a fucking map and a booklet on how to like do I
I
was
bet they
so
charged you $20 for that. That was a box set, wasn't it?
with a box set. Yeah, all of that stuff from Avalon Hills RuneQuest were box sets. What was funny is I saw it back on the shelf 2 weeks later, uh, re-cellophaned. I was like, whatever. Just it should come with a warning for whoever buys it next. It was that bad. Really.
Yeah, that store owner just wanted to get some money out of it.
Yeah, I guess I don't blame them, but man, the Avalon Hill RuneQuest stuff was hit or miss. That one was much more.
Yeah,
more
the third. I didn't get third edition RuneQuest, but I heard that was all my friend back in the day told me that the third edition was pretty hit or miss.
Yeah, and actually, I got third edition, and then I found second edition, and second edition was just so much better. I was like, oh,
I ran a session for Tim and Dwayne of second edition. Tim had his legs lopped off, and he had to heal himself. He decided, you know what, I'm going to get heal 6, and he's glad he got heal 6 because he was sitting there in the middle of that whatever tavern in Apple Lane, and his leg bleeding out, but he was able to reattach it, and boy, second edition, the limbs go flying. So I have the table of contents up. If
yeah.
you want
Well,
to take a look.
let me.
Well, why was that in the marketing, Rob? Limbs go flying. Well, that should have been. That should have been.
Yeah, it should have been.
That should be
The
a very
subtitle.
common quote.
So this is the preliminary table of content, and John, I'm sorry, man, but when you detail an area that's 240 miles by 320 miles, it starts to add up. Okay, so I tried to keep it as small as possible because it's going to be 200 pages. But as you can see, I start off with a short intro right here, and then some overview stuff, and that's only takes up 16 page or up here, and then I immediately leap into the stuff you guys want, and then I put like in cultures, organization, religion, the history stuff, all at the backside. So those of you who are interested in that, you'll have material for that. And also, I expanded the travel rules a bit. I still have I go into overland travel. I go into underwater descent because I have that whole thing underneath the gray sea, so that's important now. And I talk about caravans. I talk about ships, and then those of you who had my how to make a fantasy sandbox, I did a little bit more work on the encounter thing I do, and then I go into the actual encounter, and then the actual random table, traditional style random tables right here. So that is what you're going to get with this Kickstarter, plus lots and lots of maps.
Does the gray sea get grayer and grayer the further down you go, or what is there any
I recommend carrying a light source.
is there any special water effects that are down there?
Yeah, there isn't really terrain underwater as so much as there are environmental hazards like rip currents, whirlpool, or columns of water swirling around. So I did some research into that, and I kind of turned that into those are most of the hazards you will go through encounter, rather than having to slog through forest or mountain. Those are the things that would slow down underwater travel.
So is it just things that you'll encounter while you're traveling, or is there like adventuring sites under there?
Oh, there's adventuring sites. There's a lot of adventuring sites. So, okay, to explain my travel system to most of you know, is I'm not a big fan of the traditional travel system. For one thing, you're rolling a lot. You're like rolling every day, or if I'm using Harn, I'm rolling every 4 hours, and that gets to be a lot of freaking roll. And then I played Adventures in Middle Earth, and what they did is they said, okay, you're going to have a journey of such length. You're going to have anywhere between no encounters, one encounter, two, all the way up to 6 encounters. And they didn't really say, but when they explained it like that, it occurred to me that if you're making 20 rolls in a row and say you have a 2 in 6 chance of encounters, it's highly unlikely that you're going to get more than a handful of encounters with that many, even with that many rolls. And there's a piece of mathematics called a binomial distribution that will tell you the odds. And as it turns out, when you graph it, it's a bell curve. So you can throw away those 20 encounter rolls, make a single chart, roll 2d6 or 3d6, and generate, okay, I'm going to have 4 encounters. And then the other thing I don't like about traditional counter is they never really fit like the exact location where you're at. Sure, they give you a forest, but because you only have so many pages in the book, you can't give a forest encounter for the Twin Horn Forest, the Aldine Forest, or otherwise your page count is going to balloon inside. So what I did is I made a bunch of free-form encounters, and I still kept the random encounters as a possibility, but I kept some free-form, so wherever you place it, you can look at the map, see what's there, and tailor that encounter to actually what is there, so it makes sense.
Okay.
So,
Is that in the new book, Rob? Do you put those kind of details for travel in there? In other words, how to do the or is come up with your encounter math?
yes, it's in the book. And it's also on how to make a fantasy sandbox. So Flint, you can turn to the back half of that. It's in the appendix. You'll see this is like version 1.5 because I found a few things because I've been using it, and Also, I didn't have travel rates in how to make a fantasy sandbox, so I have travel rates here, and I think I came up with a good system with for that. And but yeah, so the weather, you don't really need to roll for weather because there's an encounter there called inclement weather, so that tells you that the weather is going to be bad enough. So if you have a 5-day journey and you roll inclement weather, you could say, okay, I'm going to put it on day 4, and on day 3 you see it's cloudy now, no longer sunny, and then day day 5, that's when all hell broke loose, and you got to make your survival checks or however you want to structure that encounter. I give guidelines, but it
So we're not tracking it by individual degrees. This is no good.
I think I earned my right to do this after 30 years of harm. Okay, as much as I love their weather chart, and they're the best weather chart for the amount of detail that they give, the easiest to use, but still, got to roll on that every 4 hours, and you got this big old piece of paper, good just for 1 month only. It gets kind of old.
So Zatron, that's the link to how to make a fantasy sandbox. It's an affiliate link. So
Oh, thank you.
if you do happen to use it, you put a few coins in the tavern's in pocket, place, wallet. David, welcome. Always good to see you. But yeah, no. Now, as Rob was saying, like that, if you back his Kickstarter, you'll have some of that information, but goes to 11. I mean, is that what we're saying, Rob? Is this going to be like the Spinal Tap version of these charts that it improves upon?
I'm a total music philistine, so I did not catch any of that
Okay, you
reference.
don't get
Translate it into English, please.
okay. So that was my spinal. By the way, folks, Spinal Tap is coming to theaters July 4th weekend. Just saying.
And they're making part 2.
Right, that comes out in the fall, but the theatrical release of this is Spinal Tap, July 4th weekend. If it's a show night, I might be MIA. I'm just saying. So the joke in there, Rob, is that like perfection is 10, but they already went to 10, so they had to like get their amp to go to 11, and then they penciled it in. So I was wondering if we already have perfection, yet you've got more perfection on the perfection. Is this going to 11?
I think it would be 11.
Okay.
I think so. The only issue is it turned out to be 100,000 words. I thought I had it covered. The Waterland is 18 maps, 22 inches by 17 inch. So it's a lot of words there too, especially if you did what the Necromancer's game did and expanded it to a paragraph. And
Right.
so I thought, I'm going to do 4 12-inch by 18 maps. No, it rapidly expanded. So I'm going to do more of these, but they're going to be like once every 2 years. And I'm going to do more of the Black Marsh style letter size map. So I can just, get a 16 to 32 page setting out there for people to enjoy, set in various areas of the Majestic Fantasy realm. And then, like this consolidated Black Marsh, Southland, and the Wild North, plus added new stuff, then I might consolidate some of those letter size map into one of these omnibus um, deals. But so John said that the hex, it's not the amount of content, it's the what goes into the hex that's the issue. So I feel like I need to prove myself here. So just give me a second.
And Eric, is there any reason why we can't just make 10, 11? I mean,
well, because 11 is bigger than 10. Okay. That is the line from Spinal Tap. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
It is.
All right,
sorry.
so I got it.
Sorry.
So I got it shared.
All right, 1 second.
So as you can see here, these are the entries. And already you're seeing like 4 entries on the screen. They're like a paragraph each. There are some longer ones. See if I can find. It's pretty short. Oh, here. So the Tower of Undying. And also I have stat block, guys. You know, for settlements and tribes, I have stat blocks, including the number of military they have. Like this is ruled by a lich named Kosti the Undying, and you know, so he needs a little bit more detail. So this one is 3 paragraph, but as you can see down here, the Kozak encampment. This is just 1 paragraph and describes that. So I hope that meets your approval, John. I've tried to keep it short so you guys can just dive in. Those of you who are a fan of Adventure Conquers King, I made sure I include the market size and the resources. So if you want to do your fantasy trading or use my merchant adventures that I got up on my website, I got you covered there as well.
Damn.
Yay!
All the bases belong to Rob. I know. I'm getting the old dad jokes out, folks. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
That's really what it is, man. The old dad jokes.
You're right, David. Harn does rule. You know, I can prove my creds in that regard. All Harn stuff. This row, down there, down and down there. Oh, and even way up there.
Harn is everywhere.
Harn is everywhere, but it also means when my player goes left instead of right, I can just reach behind me. So if I need something dwarven related, I can go here and just pull out. I can just pull out that, and I got myself a village.
I was slow in the draw. I wasn't able to get the end big in time.
No, that's sorry.
So we're gonna get to that controversy there, Eric.
Controversy.
What controversy?
What controversy? Oh, you mean the Baldur's Gate 3 figures that looked like somebody's chat on them?
No, well, that's a pretty good one, Eric. But I think that's still bearing the lead.
It's like pre-fireball, after fireball. Oh.
Those were horrible.
One quick question, John. They're in the. I think. Well, they were in the Harn decks in the old one, but they have the 2 main articles. They still call it. I'm sorry. They call it the Harn decks, and then the other one they just call the Harn regional module. It's in there, so that's where the Harn weather charts are.
And trust me, you don't want the Greyhawk weather charts because they were in issue 68, 69 of Dragon initially. Then they were in a box set. I killed a party before they could make it to the village of Hamlet using those weather charts. They were going from Verbalbank, I still remember this, Verbalbank to Hamlet. And I rolled on the weather charts and I got a blizzard that lasted 4 days.
So you were playing Oregon Trails before there was Oregon Trails.
Yeah. The party of adventurers died along the way. I was like, does anybody have people like, I didn't even get a blanket. I don't even have I could do flint and steel. I go, well, it's like 3 feet of snow. What are you gonna burn? It's like fuck, I don't want to play this no more. I'm like, yeah, I don't know if I want to play it anymore either, because I think I killed you all with weather. Yeah.
Killed by weather.
Yeah.
One of my favorite video games is called The Long Dark, and it's like you're in an airplane crash in northern Canada, and you have to act quick. You're right on the edge of death. Negative 20 degrees. It's not good.
And that's in the summertime. Just be careful, kids. Be careful. The Great White North isn't called the Great White North because the flowers are white.
Chubby, do you have to do checks as to whether or not you want to eat people that you're with? Is there some sort of check you roll?
Oh, there's no people with you. It's just you.
Oh, it's just you. Oh, I thought, okay.
Yeah,
Well, if
it's
I
just
gnaw,
you.
can I gnaw on the finger to keep me alive?
Yeah.
No, but you can hit rabbits with rocks and break their necks.
Okay. All right.
It's a survival game. I like them, but they sucked up way too much time, and I had writing to do. This stuff that you guys seen now. So I chose the writing. My poison is a game called Rust. So
Rust.
You probably choose wisely, Rob.
Yeah.
You probably choose wisely.
Having
Yeah.
had a tetanus shot once in my life, I don't want another one. I think I'll pass on a game called Rust.
I played Conan Exile, and I would say that's my second favorite. Especially allowed me to build an honest to God pyramid. So any games you had the building parts to do that.
Rob likes
that
the
gets up-
games with the nudity in it. Also, Conan. It's got
Where
a
the
lot
hell
of
did
that.
that come from, Greg?
I'm just. That's the one when you said Conan Exiles, I thought about all the image screenshots I've seen of Conan Exiles, and I realized why you were playing it, Rob. I get it. I'm down.
I know Naked on the Beach is a trope of the genre.
I'm speechless, folks, and I'm just here for the ride.
Judges Guild.
Judge. Oh yeah. Judges Guild. By the way, and now this might have been overlooked by many people, but when Bob Jr. gave his rant, screed, update, whatever, he challenges you, the viewing public, to find anywhere a better company logo than 13-year-old.
I thought that was hilarious also.
Challenge accepted, the internet said.
So for folks that don't know what the logo looks like, hold on a second.
It's a shield with a person on it, right?
Hey, Eric, this is your next video. 25 logos better than Judges Guild. And just scroll through 25 logos.
This one's a turd. This one's a turd on ice. Hold on.
I'd say TSR is better than Judges Guild for sure.
Oh yeah, the dragon logo, the medallion logo.
Did he say he drew it when he was like 8?
At 13.
13. All
13.
right. Well.
So folks, just so you know, that logo, I challenges you. Find a better logo. You will never find one.
Never.
I don't know if it's a better logo, but my logo had a better story behind it.
Well, were you 13?
No.
By the
Well,
way,
no. Wait a
Rob.
minute. The story, though. No, the story took place when I was 19. So no.
Wow. That was pre-industrial, right?
Yep, my bat in the attic story.
Bat in the attic. All right. So, by the way, I'm going to give you the exact quote. I created the company logo at age 13, but only with my father's instigation. But I challenge you to find a more badass company logo anywhere in the world.
Wow. The ego on this guy is breathtaking.
Somebody needs to take his cocaine away. That's all I'm saying. Can we just take it away from him? Can we not have an intervention or something? Help the guy out.
It's the bestest. My logo goes to 11. That's all I'm saying. Oh, it goes to 13.
I still have that the Tankies graphic I made with the ladder.
Oh my God, that's a better logo.
Yeah. Or for Matt, excuse me.
Yes.
Yeah. Let me find that.
So, Well, no, listen, I'm not saying how I know this, but I was sent a list of everything that Junior worked on that he's not credited with anywhere. So if you need the list, I have the list because Mike was foolish enough one time to say online that Junior didn't do anything except make a logo. Well, he worked on like 95,000 products, but never got credited. So you should know that.
Me too. You prove it. Prove that I
All
didn't,
right,
Eric.
I'm going to say this. He was an artist, so I don't know how many pieces of art he did. I don't know if he did any writing, but I know he did art.
Okay.
I mean,
I'm
how
just
many
saying, like,
pieces? I can't say, but he was an artist. He remained an artist. So
if you're not listed on a product, right, having worked on it, I'm not the great Kreskin, right? Wasn't that the guy from like Johnny Carson?
Johnny
From
Carson,
Johnny,
yeah.
they're gonna do the great Kreskin. The 95,000 titles that Bob Junior Bloodsoe worked on. On a piece of paper, we don't know, man. We don't. We don't. We don't. If the knowledge isn't out there, nobody knows. I'm sure he's part of the work he did, so he knew, but nobody else knew. The Great Karnak, sorry, yeah. Kreskin was somebody else, I guess, but yes, I don't do good Johnny Carson impressions. I'm sorry, Kreskin was a real guy. All
So,
right.
so where do you think this goes from here then? What is the next misstep? Where can it possibly go from
What
here?
what more can we fuck up?
Joe Goodman could react in a dumb way to this.
Hey.
well,
That
yeah, the ball's in his court right now because
Yeah.
is he going to try to ride this out? Which case is the voices are going to keep rising about the discrepancies that N World and Eric pointed out
Yep.
in the timeline. You know, I think 2/3 of the hobby don't understand what's going on because they just want to play game, get on with their games and
I'd say 90% or more. I mean, 95% maybe. People don't even know. Like when I read I watched Eric's video, I read the press release, and I still didn't pick up that there was a discrepancy between what
Oh yeah.
Goodman was saying, and I mean, like it's a
well,
small detail. It's a lawyer's detail. In the final interrogatory at the end of the Law and Order, they catch the person in a lie, and they're like, well, but you said
But
blah blah blah, and then
you forgot to initial and double initial over here with the date.
that's
But
right. Yeah.
well,
yeah,
what I meant, Greg. Okay, so I didn't really clarify. You're right about that. I mean, it is a I wouldn't say a small detail. It is a detail easy to miss. But most people, a lot of people in this hobby have a negative impression of Judge's Guild, not just because of what he posted on his Facebook, but but it it it's not any one thing. Okay, he could have screwed over his backers, and that would have been a thing, but might have gotten moved past that. He might have done what he did on his Facebook post. And he might have gotten away with that, but he did both. And then over the years, he compounds it. Like before even the Kickstarter announcement was made, he made that claim that he owned all hex maps, the right to the hex map.
we were the first with hexes. Nobody had a hex before us. You
And
know.
and that stuff gets around, not to the majority of the
God
hobby,
borrowed the hex from us.
but it's enough when it comes up. Invariably somebody's in that thread going to say, yeah, it's that guy. What do you mean? Oh, that. And these are stuff that are not in obvious, like a timeline of who signed and signed what. And speaking
Well,
of hexes, I did do some investigating about when all this stuff was invented. And numbered hexes were invented by SPI and first used for a war game in 1971, a Napoleonic war game. But Bob Bledsaw Sr. was the first to take a hex map and subdivided it into smaller hexes and publish it commercially. That he was the first to do that.
All right, so
Well, wasn't
but-
there a
but-
story? Let me ask a question real quick. Wasn't there a story, and I can't remember the history of it all, but I remember was there not a game called Outdoor Survival?
yes,
Yes.
Yes. And
That
that's where the 5 mile per hex. So that the Judges Guild didn't do that. That was found in book 3 of the original OD&D set. They said, "Hey, take your outdoor survival map and make sure it's 5 and count each hex as 5 miles, and that you can use that for your wilderness."
so right. So that was pre everything, right? It still was pre
Mhm.
everything.
Yep.
Hmm.
And that's probably why the Judges Guild maps are 5 miles, because he was just following the rules of the book.
I mean, the whole
It strikes me there's a
Go ahead.
class of guy. There's a class of guy that I'm familiar with. I met them at work. I used to work the job before I have the one I have right now. The boss was like this. It's an older guy who comes from a pre-internet world, right? And believes that by force of his, he probably thinks it's charisma, but just personality force, when he's in conversations, he can say things and people won't challenge him on it, either because the person is, let maybe say, genuinely charismatic, but more often than not, it's just they're so just disagreeable and ornery that nobody wants the pain that comes with challenging them. So in a human face-to-face context, they can make all kinds of wild claims, and everybody around them is just like, yeah, okay, sure. And then when they make that wild claim with somebody who has a phone, then that person can just be like, let's see, boop, 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 boop. Oh, you're full of shit. So that's and this person's brain is still operating under the idea that they can just create reality by saying something.
Yeah.
And you're dealing with people now who can just verify it in 10 seconds that you're wrong, but they haven't updated their behavior yet. So they make these grandiose claims that anyone who has experience with the modern world is like, you're full of shit. Like within a moment, I can tell you're full of shit. The way you talk makes me realize you're full of shit.
You're right, Greg. That guy is. I haven't really seen that guy in a while.
Yeah, I used to.
Well, I guess it's replaced by everybody talking about the latest
years. It was brutal.
Yeah, when you can get fact checked in about 5 seconds,
That's
and
right.
You're just not aware. I mean, you're talking about guys that are, some guys that are pre-internet that don't understand how real time fact finding works today.
Wait,
But
you got
it's
a
been
computer
replaced,
in your
though.
pocket? No, you got a computer in your pocket? You could look up the internet from your hand? No.
Now there is. I think it's been replaced. I know it's been replaced by. It's replaced by the person who uncritically looks at everything on their feed and accepts it at face value. So you get these two people arguing at work over something. Doesn't matter what side of the political divide they are. They get argued, but because then the whole root of it, this guy looks at this one feed that has a particular slant, and the other guy's looking at that feed that has a particular slant, and they both think they're both right, and that's the truth of the world. Now, I've seen more of that going on.
I heard they put killer piranhas in the Rio Grande, and that stopped the illegal immigration. And I hate to say it, I actually did see somebody on Facebook mention that, and I was like, okay, unfollow, because if you're believing that, I probably don't need you in my feed anyway.
Well, I had somebody claim to me one time, one of these guys, that there were in World War II, the Germans attacked France directly through the Maginot Line. And I was like, no, I know that that's not true.
Through Belgium?
Maybe there's some people that you could use your special magic to convince that that's what happened. I'm like, but just a basic understanding of the Battle of France, and you will say, no, no, that did not happen. But this guy doubled down, he tripled down. He was absolutely certain that
That
the Germans attacked directly through the Maginot Line.
no, even after the fall of Paris. I mean, even when France signed the armistice line, there was a big old pocket in
That's
Alsace
right. They
Lorraine.
still held it. They held it all the way to Vichy. I was like, oh my God, there's no way. This
Yeah,
guy's an idiot.
I mean, it did its job. They just didn't build it long enough, I guess.
Listen, if these people, if they don't,
If you're gonna build a wall, it's got to be big enough. A little wall don't do no
that's
good.
right. Listen, the key to this is these people must not have children. You see, my oldest son, who is 30 now, we will argue about movies incessantly, and he will tell me things, and we will argue about things like box office numbers and better movies. And buddy, he is on his phone in about 3 seconds checking me as to whether or not I'm right or not, because it goes on and on.
Fact
And
check.
I check him back. So I mean, get some of these, get some children around you that will help, facilitate this understanding, of how you have discussed facts today.
Yeah. One of my favorite stand-up bits is Aziz Ansari, where he's like, have you ever been sitting around and you're watching a movie like Home Alone and you think to yourself, I wonder if Home Alone 2 made more money than Home Alone 1. Boop, 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 boop. And he's like, yeah. And he goes, and then you go, I want to know everything about Joe Pesci. Boom. It's like, he's like, and now I know everything there is to know about Joe Pesci. Like that's the modern thing. Like it captures it perfectly. Yeah.
That's correct. It's all trivia in some way. You're right. It's a trivial thing in the sense that, everybody has these facts, all these facts, and the thing is, if you're not practicing, right? If you're not practicing history all the time, if you're not teaching it all the time, if you're not, you're prone to do things like that. If you're not actively teaching it, maybe,
Yeah, and with AI in the picture, it's just going to get crazier.
Oh yeah. Well, you know what? Hey, I watched the new, Mission Impossible. AI.
Well,
I was
well,
thinking
that's
of you,
forward
Rob.
to-
I was thinking of you, and I said, "Here comes Rob AI, destroying the world right here, just
I
destroying it
knew it's going to come up.
in
I
IMAX."
guess you're off the hook, Greg. You didn't say it first.
You look, you
There
destroyed the
wasn't
world
a
in
good
IMAX,
context.
Rob. In IMAX,
Yeah.
large
Is it
screen.
worth seeing? That's what I want to know.
What?
It's Mission Impossible movie worth seeing.
Yes,
Of
in
course it
IMAX.
is.
Pay the
Well,
extra.
I don't have access to IMAX, but I about 3 years ago I followed the first three and I lost track of it, and I thought, they keep people raving about these movies, especially the stunt work. So I started with number four. I rewatched the three, and then I started four, and I'm okay.
Four might be my favorite.
Okay.
That's
My hot take, I guess. Maybe, I don't know.
that's the one with the Burj Khalifa in it, right?
The tallest building in the world.
Yeah, and then the desert chase with the sandstorm and all that jazz. Yeah, that was good. Three was not so great. Two was okay, but yeah, Rogue Nation came out swinging. Yeah,
And Fallout, yeah, with
very good.
yeah, those that was an excellent one.
So you think they're going to end the series with Final Reckoning?
They should.
Whoa! They should. Well,
There's
wait,
no
I haven't
spoilers here. I'm
seen
not
like
spoiling anything. I'm just saying. I think this is a great place to end it. Should they decide to?
If I was Tom Cruise, I would try to make absolutely sure it was ended before I died, because if it didn't, they would find some way to fuck it up on a resurrection after they'd cast somebody that was horrible to replace him. They'd do all kinds of stuff. Yeah, if I was
No, they'll
him,
just make a Tom.
They'll
Tom
go
Yeah.
younger. They'll just go younger. They'll put together the young team. Some, at that point, they'll get a millennial to be the lead, some millennial actor, and then a bunch of Gen Zs, smattering of other things.
And don't forget, there was a time
millennial
when
would be
everybody
able to
looked
handle
at,
the stress.
Huh?
there was.
What, Chubby?
What millennial would be able to handle the stress of being in charge of an organization?
Oh, yes, just I can't believe that. Then that's completely unbelievable.
Ooh.
I don't know.
I would have
Oh
to
my
suspend
fucking God.
disbelief.
Right.
I don't know.
I
It's
can't
because
believe
I
it.
was born. My family's generations was weird, but both of my parents were born in the Depression, and heck, my grandfather was born in the 19th century, and I hear him. You guys are complaining like them about the baby boomers, and it's like
You always
sitting
want
there.
to choose. You always want to side with the losers, Rob. I get it. It's underdog story. I get it. I get it. Oh yeah, sure. They have time blindness, but we're weird for figuring out that they can't do anything. Brutal.
Fox of RPG.
Like hearing my
I
dad
am under
again
attack.
in that regard. Sitting there at the table, pontificating.
Well, I don't suppose it ever occurred to you that he was right then, also.
Yeah. Damn these kids.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible that he's right and we're right. And I mean,
so
it's
the
just
right
been a long
generation.
decline. I mean, I haven't invaded any countries. I haven't fought in any. I haven't climbed any mountains. These people in the older generation, they were killing it, man.
Yeah.
Well, I give them props.
I climbed Stone Mountain.
Yeah.
Right there in Georgia.
Yeah, God, these people who cry Nazi at the drop of a hat, if real Nazis showed up, those people would run for the hills, man. They couldn't take on real Nazis.
Right.
Be rolling over. You got to have iron will to fight that shit.
But see, it's the youngins that can actually do it, whereas the oldies are like, yeah, I did it, and I don't want to do it again. Listen, when I was a younger man, I could walk 24 flights in housing straight up
to the wrong building
to then come right back down another staircase, and it was like another trip in the park. Now I'd go, is the elevator working? I'll take the piss, man. I'll take the piss, go up, and then I'll come
Hey,
down.
Eric, do we have another guest waiting to ring if I read that message right?
We could.
I don't mind.
Okay. I will do it the moment my cat gives me back my keyboard. Hello. Yes, you got to go.
Oh, you have an orange. I didn't know you had an orange cat.
I have an orange cat.
Do you have more than one cat?
No,
Eric has a lot of
my
pussy.
parents. I had a prior cat, but she passed away nearly 5 years ago. And then this one walked herself in the back door the next day. No more pussy jokes. Okay?
Look, these cards get bigger and bigger as we go along. So I'm just telling you, I'm starting here.
No. Listen, we've already told you. All right. There are no X cards allowed at this virtual table. I don't want to offend you.
You are gatekeeping me, sir. You are gatekeeping me in my X card.
But if you are offended by the lack of X cards, I can't help that.
I was in a forum discussion, and they were talking about how to run campaigns and stuff like that. And they were talking about, they didn't bring up X cards or like that, but they were bringing out bad DMs. And I go and I say, the rules can't fix bad DMing. You just got to learn good leadership skills. And, and I explained, when you go to the volunteer organization, when you're in education, when you're in all these different things, they offer leadership courses. Some of them, and when you take them, some of them actually help. and they teach you a lot. And the rules of the game are not going to be a leadership course. Just bite the bullet, spend the time learning how to be a good leader, and this will go a long way to fixing these kind of problems. Boy, did I get ever a lot of pushback for that.
No,
Nobody wants
Rob,
to hear
what you
that,
have to
Rob.
do is you have to design your system to be extremely open to player authoring so that every time the GM is bad, the players can play their special currency in order to take control of the narrative. And then that way the game will be perfect.
By the way, Jim Kitchen is joining us, and Jim is in his usual position, holding the
Hey,
show
Jim.
up. Greg had your position earlier, but then Flint jumped in and took half the screen. But now we have Jim. So welcome, Jim.
How are we doing
They
tonight?
have the screen.
Well, how are
We're
you
melding
doing
the
tonight,
stream, by the
Jim?
way. Wednesday, Friday.
I'm
stream.
enjoying the sudden implosion and vacuum as a post that was on Facebook disappeared within hours of it having
I
come.
noticed that it disappeared also, yes.
I mean, it was
Yeah.
like a
See, now
black
initially,
hole
I
collapsing in on
couldn't
itself.
tell.
It was all
I was blocked. I had to get it shared to me
it
by
was
other people.
it was like literally this compacted mass of bullshit and made up things just decided to take itself out of the universe.
Although, and we haven't touched on this, but one of my favorite parts was and folks, he shared it, so it's public information, even though it seems a little personal. But Bob is engaged, and I wanted to congratulate him on his 3-year engagement to a Filipino woman that I don't think he named her, but that's okay. But her father gave him information that he's using in the new Wilderland book about I don't know, Tagalog religious practices.
I think the less said of this, the better. I just
That's
I
an
think there are
optimistic
some
take on the
things-
internet, Jim.
Jim's
I
a
think
wise man. A wise man.
this is we've all seen this reality television episode, right? We all saw the guy with no neck and the Filipino bride that was not his bride or his fiance, and how she took him for everything. And I've seen this, and I don't need a repeat. I'm just walking away.
Well, one second. You're welcome, Thaiatus. I hope I pronounced that right. Yeah, but now it's plastered on the front page of End World. What's that going to do to everything? I mean, I'm kind of miffed that
There's a
gonna
structure
screw up.
effect going on too.
That's going to screw up the backers again.
Nah, like the best part of all of that is that they've I'm gonna say this, and truthfully, like everything that Goodman's done to try to Bledsaw proof the claim process, I feel pretty confident in that. Right now, the only thing that I think, and I say this again to anybody and everybody, please, dear God, if you know somebody that backed the original Kickstarter, please tell them to file a claim. Please tell them.
Well, my suggestion is to go on there and find all the comments, because I don't think people there got them. The only message they know is the one that Bob posted on the.
Don't. Yeah, but by the way, don't send your information to Judges Guild. Send it to Goodman Games. Once I saw that Joe had a link up and the email was up and the instructions, I was on top of it because I feel comfortable giving Joe Goodman my information.
So I mean, I know everything that they put into the back end of this is going to be transparent. I have talked to Joe about this countless times. I am confident in the process. You know, I don't want to be the broken record, but really and truly, like I don't know. And interestingly, you know, the preface was there's going to be a big announcement on Friday. Well, I mean, we got 3 hours and 54 minutes, but I don't think there's going to be another announcement today. I think.
No, he jumped
This wasn't
the gun.
the announcement,
he woke
and
up
he
on
jumped the
Thursday,
gun.
and Thursday was Friday. What was it, Rob?
I think it was Bob rambling. I think Bob decided to make a big post and talk about things. And if you believe any of the things that he said in the post are going to be real, I got a bridge I can sell you.
Well, hold on. His son was in on it too, because he posted something's coming on Friday on all the Judges Guild Facebook posts. And it wasn't Bob who did that. That was Aaron.
Right. And like I said, Aaron's got 3 hours and 53 minutes to get something across the wire Central Illinois time, but I don't think it's going to happen. I'd be pleasantly surprised.
No. Yesterday was the. By the way, and that was not something that he just typed out at the. He put thought into that. He put thought into. You'll never find a better logo than the logo that I did. I challenge you. That 13-year-old me did the best logo ever. That took some time. There weren't typos in there. There weren't. This wasn't somebody angrily doing this out. It was done over time. It was probably going to be Friday, but he couldn't wait. I think.
But he did get one thing wrong. They wrote that
Only one?
my half of the Waterlands map, the one all the way up there, up here.
Right.
My half is done. I gave them the files. I did it on Google Drive, so I don't know if they actually downloaded it. It won't tell you that, but I gave them access. So, and they're still on my hard drive if they need them. So they have access to my color version. Now there was an artist doing the artistic version that didn't get done, but so.
So you guys were talking about the Maginot Line, and my favorite part about the German invasion of France through the Maginot Line is that they just decided at one point to land gliders on top of it, and literally go down through ventilation shafts and so on and so forth. The entire German army was like, we're just not even bothering. Like, I think somebody in the comments mentioned that they did a small portion of the Maginot Line.
They did attack it for propaganda purposes at one location.
But for the most of it, they just went around it or went over it or put troops on top of it and just started dropping grenades down ventilation shafts, and it was just a mess.
The real lesson of the Maginot Line is to not trust the Belgians.
Okay, Greg. I'm glad we're not in the European Union.
There's no good that comes from Benelux. There's nothing.
You cut through Belgium like chocolate.
That's right. My favorite book. After World War II, the U.S. Army captured all these Germans and debriefed them for months and years. And there was this whole series of DoD manuals that was essentially lessons learned from the Germans and so on and so forth. And I had one. It was entitled, and I think you can find it on Google. I think you can look it up. It's Improvisations During a Winter Campaign. And it was all these notes about what it was like to fight the Germans in the middle of winter, fight the Russians during World War II. Ooh. And it was all these various things that they did, traversing 88s to take out tanks and improvising sledges to move heavy equipment. But it's one of these official DoD documents. I don't think it was rated top secret, but it's Improvisations of a Winter Campaign, and it's a great read. Like at one point, they knew they weren't getting more ammo. They knew they weren't getting more guys. They were having to literally scrounge for everything on the Eastern Front. But it's a really, really interesting read of German improvisation during, with impossible goals and impossible tasks and a finite amount of resources, and what they were having to deal with, partisan behind the lines, T-34s and other innovations on the front of the lines. It's a good read. So, yeah.
Damn.
Sorry.
No, it's okay. You're derailing, but that's good because I was a history major, and World War II history was my focus, mostly because I could take two classes at the same time and just have one thing of reading material because everything overlapped. So it was just an easy way to do a history major. And we had enough classes in that.
My most amazing World War II fact in Jim's vein is that DoD found out that Japan was not rotating their aviators back to the home islands to train new aviators. So once you got trained as a pilot on the home islands and you left to join a carrier group, you never came back. So they had no way of gaining any combat experience knowledge for new trainees. Oh, unbelievable! Holy shit!
If you have any interest in the war in the Pacific, the landmark work of the last 25 years is Ian Toll's Toll his Pacific War trilogy. And Jesus, it starts with this great essay in the first chapter about William Thayer Mahan and how he shaped battleship doctrine after the first dreadnought slid out into the ocean, and talks about Mahan and how Mahan influenced the U.S. Navy, but not just the U.S. Navy, the British Navy, every civilized power, every westernized power. And that in particular, after the battle, the Russo-Japanese War, where the Japanese just sank the entire fleet, how this just becomes instilled, and so on. And it's all going to go according to Mahan. And then, of course, carrier aviation becomes a thing. But he talks, he goes through all these detailed pieces of information. But the one that just still left me gobsmacked, right? And Chubby, you're spot on. There's all these great insights into what it was like to be a Japanese fighter pilot during World War II. You started off and you cut your teeth in the invasion of Manchuria and Manchukuo, and literally you had, at the start of World War II, by the late 30s, you had the best aircraft,
the
best.
Zero was incredible at that time.
All of this, right?
Before the Corsair, it was awesome.
But
the Corsair.
But the plant that made the damn Zeros, they were using livestock to move them from one plant down to the field. And eventually they figured out that you could use draft horses, and they ate half as much as the regular horses, and they were stronger. But they were still hauling planes by the equivalent of horses from the Mitsubishi plant down to final fitting in the airfields. And even though they had the idea of what a production line was like, they had an idea of what River Rouge was capable of, and so on. They just could not get those pieces together to get a proper assembly line. So
Eric posted a link for me. It's called World War II Week by Week, and it's an excellent series. I highly recommend it. And it really gets in the nitty gritty of World War II, both West and East.
Are there any videos about the involvement of City State in the war? Any kind of historical memoirs about Bledsoe, anything like that in that playlist?
Well, here's the thing. When it comes to Bledsoe Senior and Bill Owens were well liked and well loved by not just the gaming community, but by fellow creatives and other publishers. They were well liked, well known, and it's just that I guess when the nut fell from the tree, it just fell a little further from the source.
There's actually a book about the early history of Judges Guild out. Judges Guild, a cautionary tale. I'll find a link to it. But it's written by Bill Owens.
Yes, it's like a spiral bound book, isn't it, Rob?
I think it's the one I have. Well, you know what? I got it on Kindle, so I'm not sure. I'm getting the Amazon link. Oh, you have Kindle Unlimited. It's free. Do you need?
And it's only 14 in paperback.
Okay, why don't you post that link you found?
I got it. Yep.
So, can you share the one screen? Just one last thing from my Kickstarter.
Oh, wrong. Sorry, wrong. I didn't copy the link. Apparently. All right. Hold on. Why? Okay. There we go. Something wasn't Viking. Now it's Viking. I will get, and then I will get up. Hold on.
While he's looking that up, I'll just say that I'm waiting on a book to show up. That there's a really, really, really well-researched book on Josephine Baker that's just come out, and her role as a spy during World War II that I'm looking forward to reading. Look at that. Look at that cover.
So I got to still do more coats of arms. And this time, guys, the coats of arms, I'm going to have the notes inside explaining who these coats of arms belong to. The one on top is the Grand Kingdom. And then the blue with the yellow tower is Black Marsh. And then the one that's kind of hard to zoom in on that, this one here, that is the Duchy of Northport. And this one, Greg should recognize this one. I'm repurposing for the exiled Viking king at Castle
Yeah.
Caldane. So
Yeah,
anyway,
I used to be a member of that royal family.
there you go. And then, so, basically this is going to be my cover. And instead of showing map excerpts, I have enough landscape art that can show actual terrain as part of the little vignettes.
All those coats of arms are better logos than the Judges Guild logo.
You beat me to it, damn it! You beat me to it. I was gonna throw that
No
out
comment.
there.
I don't want to poke the bear. I don't want to poke. I'm sorry. I don't want to poke the wash bears.
I thought the Bat in the Attic logo was a little bit better, but I mean,
Well, I
just
appreciate
that
the
would break.
compliment.
I've been told my logo is better than Judges Guild logo.
well, you're the chubby fox.
Thank you, John.
So yeah, I think. Yeah, it is a nice homage, and by the way, the secret to a nice homage is that you evoke without copying, and I think Rob has done a great job of doing it. Except that you're using hexes, because we already know the history of hexes begins and ends with Judges Guild. Oh no, we know it doesn't. Oh, sorry, I'm just.
Not even using
She
5
said,
mile hexes of all things.
Rob, you should have gone like 5.1. Just
No,
so
no,
you
no,
can-
no. If I had my druthers, I would have gone with the 12.5s, the 5 league hexes of Harn. Well, I'm going to go anything other than 5. It's going to be Harn. So
Okay.
it's 5 leagues, 5 hours of walking. I know people say that 2.5 miles per hour is slow, but it is when you're trying to travel the entire day. It's about the right travel speed.
It's also hard when you're wearing an 80-pound kit. Yeah,
Preach it, brother.
yeah.
Preach it.
People want to calculate it as if they're walking in the park with a good pair of hiking boots on, but when you're wearing chainmail leggings and an 80-pound kit, it's going to get pretty intense.
And a bag full of gold.
That's
You're
right.
carrying that around.
Hey, even just 2,000 copper pieces can be quite a load.
Right.
Eric can attest to that.
That's why you leave it behind in the rat
That's
shit.
right.
I'm just saying.
Oh my
Oh
god,
my
that's
God.
great. Yeah, I just remember, like, why do we have to bring men at arms just to carry all the copper we find?
Yeah, that's what followers were for. And for some reason in my regular current gaming groups, we unless you're Greg brings an army with him that he's charmed. That was always Greg's little secret. It's like, add another hobgoblin to the party.
Hey, I
Hard to
survived.
have with dogs.
I survived Tim's campaign with a cleric with 1 hit point because I spent my hard-earned cash hiring hirelings. So
With Joe's campaign, I start out with 4 dogs, and 3 of them died, and then I had Ritardo Montalban for a long time. He was the only dog that survived the first 2 encounters. And then Ritardo finally died in that battle with.
wait a minute, Eric, you got to color correct. He's too red now.
Wow, that's just
with the Dretches, the battle with the Dretches, remember? And
Yeah.
Ritardo ran in, and he stayed alive for like 5 rounds of them swinging and missing at him, and then he finally went down. It was very sad.
It was a sad day indeed.
that might be one of the best bad character names I've heard in a long time. that's like chef's kiss. That's just
It's way better than Petey. you know,
Oh
or
my god, that's just amazing.
Wilson.
Oh my god. See, Greg. There's reasons why we don't stream our games live. We only stream two of our games live, right?
Shadow Dark.
The two Shadow Darks.
Well, there was that one with I actually saw when I was looking for something earlier today. I have a folder of all the campaign stuff, and it was in the game we played with on Monday nights with Joe. That's all I have folders with the
Oh my dude, we're going
way back.
back to before.
I think
Yeah, we're going back to the Wayback
2021.
Machine.
Yeah, and that was when I had Signor Le Moissonnier. Yeah.
Okay.
He moistened the whole place up. Yeah, that was another. Joe hated that name. That's why I just threw it out there as a joke, and Joe was like, "That's horrible," and I was like, "Done. We'll go with that."
Yeah. Gotta keep it. Gotta keep it.
That's great.
Well,
I mean, that's terrible, but that's wonderful.
And then I was Marvis in Tim's game. That was just close but off. Marvis.
no. Yeah, actually I wish I could remember the character I played
You always go with
in
like,
Tim's game.
you know, Thor, Oak and Shield type stuff. You know, just kind of classic.
Yeah.
Dwarven kind of names. You know, you don't take the big risks. You wouldn't have a Ricardo Montalban in your group.
I probably wouldn't, but then again, yeah, you know, I'm also not not that you are, but I mean, I can't do the 2 pages of character.
Oh yeah, I don't do that.
It's like no. I'll learn about my characters as I play them. If I know about them before I play them, then there's no use in playing them. I'll just use them in a short story that I'm not going to write. I mean, that's just my attitude. I never got into the I need my motivation.
I always found it a little odd that you were expected to have this entire backstory for a character you hadn't played yet. That to me, like the thing that defines a character is what happens in those first few games, where you know they're lucky, they're unlucky, you know, they're better with a sword than a dagger. They're, you know, some spells go well, some spells don't, right? Because this is the stuff that you build your character on. Those are the experiences that let you shape who they are and where they came from. And, you know, the reason the fireball always hits for the maximum damage is because when they were apprenticed, you know, the one spell they stayed up every night for 2 weeks to memorize, that's the kind of stuff that I think resonates. That's how you come up with a character. If you can crank out 5 pages of exposition on the motivation of your character before you've ever rolled the dice, I don't know how you can do it, because I can't.
Okay, all right.
I can't. Go ahead, Rob.
If you're gonna run a sandbox campaign, you need a backstory, but you don't need 5 frickin' pages. You need 2 or 3 paragraphs. And one of them,
no, PCC and Shadow Dark did it best. You're a gong farmer. You're a miner. You worked at a public house. The end. That's all we need, Rob. We don't need paragraphs.
That's all that you need. I've worked with a lot of players. They need a little bit more, only a little, but a little bit more. They just need a paragraph telling that everybody gets that's for their region, and they need a paragraph just for themselves. And with that, I have no trouble getting anybody started with the sandbox. Otherwise, if you don't do that and try to do your Joe style, I'm just a pub crawler, what you'll get is people like, what do I do now? You know, when you ask them what they want to do. And, you know, that's just what I discovered. Some people, you know, when you're experienced like us, that's one thing where we will happily find our own adventures, but not everybody's like that. And it's not a bad thing if they are not like that. You're just
It's okay.
Well,
Yeah, it's okay for a DM to ask
Right.
a few key questions like, what do you think your character really loves? What do you think your character really thinks worth dying for? You know,
Turnips.
exactly.
little key questions that would set them up and go, okay, that's going to put them in a mindset and give them some ideas as to what kind of character is forming here.
Exactly. And it will come out to 1 or 2 paragraphs, short paragraphs. It sounds like it's excessive, but it's not. Once you ask those questions and you get a sense of that, then you're all good. Just like I asked you, Greg, about the Viking Prince, even though you didn't write down, I know you didn't write down anything. I wrote down a
saved
paragraph of
what you
info.
wrote, and I put it in a folder.
Yes, I wrote it because I knew you wouldn't, and you would forget it.
That's because my character doesn't remember all that stuff in the moment. Because I don't.
There you go. Yeah. Now in Joe's campaign, Joe's like, "Well, this is part of your history." I go, dude, I'm in the moment, man. Wherever the party's going, I just want to survive. I'm not worried about these long-term goals. That's not what motivates me as a player. It never has been. And for me in a campaign, I want that one adventure to start everybody off, bring them together, bring that bond, and then let things emerge from there. I really, I know some games like Beyond the Wall do the person to your left is the one that you have a bond with or you have some history with. It sounds great, but true storytelling for me, I don't
Yeah,
know.
that's one of the key questions, though, I think, too, to help, especially new players, is how do you know each other, right?
Yeah,
Are any of you related in any way, or did you all serve in some sort of military? Did you, it's kind of a group, activity as far as how they want to set up their characters, but giving them a brief little sketch outline helps that as well.
yeah, no, certainly. It's just that
That's the
yeah,
second
I
paragraph I was
find bringing
talking
together
about.
for that first adventure, and it goes well from there. What up, Rob?
What Flint just talked about, that's the second paragraph you know about because that's what everybody knows, So that gives them, and one of the things we'll do will give the party a common bond to adventure together as a group.
I think Traveler did it the best with you pick somebody, you come up with something, reason why you know them, and you each get 1 point in a skill or something. That's perfect to me. If you need to have the character bond, I'm fine with just saying we're all here to kill these fucking goblins. That's why we're here. That's the backstory. That's the party justification. That's the whole history of the world. Is we're here to kill these fucking goblins, and then when we come out of the goblin cave, we just start finding out more things. But that's all we need to go in and kill those damn goblins.
Murder hobo and find
Well,
more shit.
that's the other thing, though. You as a DM, when you sit at a table, you listen to your players, you talk with your players. You don't have to make it formal, but you talk. And if you get a table full of Gregs who are perfectly willing to just pick the ball and start running with it, I guess you're just going to have an easy night with the pregame. It's not going to be much to tell. Just describe where they start off and just watch the mayhem, or just watch them start trashing your setting right there and there, then and there.
Trashing your setting.
Trashing the setting. That's great.
That's
didn't you know that, Jim? That's my catchphrase. That is you're supposed to have that one line to sell your approach. Well, when somebody pays Rob, what is your Living World Sandbox campaign all about? Why do I need to read this book? Well, it's about letting the players trash your setting. And if you're going to use my stuff, you have to be willing to let the players trash your setting. And I say that because I remember DMs back in high school, their setting was like a precious little jewel. And if you so much touch a flagon on the goddamn pub banister, they would just absolutely have a conniption fit.
Rob is the guy who was the chaperone on the kindergartners tour of the zoo. They came off the bus. He handed them all one of those 3-foot pixie sticks and said, "Go nuts."
Yeah.
So,
So
Rob,
my
all
whole
those bad GMs that you're describing, I believe those people served a purpose because without them, you wouldn't have had story games. See, all story games were created by the butthurt of living in that world with that GM. And they were like, you know what I need? I need as a player to be able to make all the changes. And then the story game was born. So everybody has a place in the process. It's like the natural world, man. You know,
the
those,
ecosystem.
Well, it's actually
yeah,
okay.
that's
So
the predator that teaches the prey to turn camouflage. You know what I mean? Like that's just the way it's part of life.
okay, so all of you, I'm sure, familiar that it's a perfectly reasonable thing. It's not everybody's cup of tea, but you can get into acting as your character as your uh, at the table. You write up a personality and you do the funny voices, and everybody's in character, and that's a thing. That's always been a thing since the beginning of the hobby. Well, I was talking on the forum the other day and learning, and one of the topics of the discussion was my sandbox campaign versus games like Burning Wheel by Luke Crane. And I couldn't understand where they were coming from because it's like they were speaking another language. So I have this friend, an old friend of mine, and he was a big fan of Burning Wheel, but he also played in my games and enjoyed it. And I asked him to explain stuff. And then we got to the end of the conversation. So you're telling me all this hoopla about Burning Wheel, not that they didn't put a lot of work in it or it isn't good, you know, but all this hoopla means they're just a bunch of folks that really get into their characters with motivations, personalities, goals, and stuff. They just role play a lot. I said, yeah, basically. There's some wrinkles in it, but yeah, basically that's what it's about. Like, okay, whatever floats your boat, I guess.
Listen, you're like the setting is like you're the hotel room and the players are the Who after a show. And they come back to the hotel room and TVs are flying out the window, beds are on fire. You just have to say that's just how that's going to go. You just have to, you know, I mean, my little setting that I'm creating, my little Skyreach, I'm almost excited to see how it might be obliterated in about 5 seconds, but we'll see. I haven't.
And
run-
here's the fun thing though. You keep that setting for your next campaign. Don't make a new setting.
Yeah.
Keep it and
yeah.
make whatever they did to trash your setting as part
100%.
of the background. And if it happens to be the same group that you're starting out as different characters, that they want to play a bunch of magic users this time instead of whatever party they have now.
Yeah.
And then they realize you've done that. First, they'll say that's cool. Then second, they'll go, uh-oh. That
Yeah.
means we have to deal with the shit that we did in the
That's
last
right.
campaign.
Rules
That's
were
right.
made. This town now has rules. They don't particularly like wizards because
I'd like to introduce.
Oh no. You're not getting the full implication. No. Wait until you get to the part where that first group gets to set some of the rules themselves.
oh yeah.
Yeah, and so you do that for a little bit, then you end the campaign. So I think this is a good ending spot. Then they come back for the next campaign, and they go back to the town and realize, oh shit, we got to deal with our own rules that we made. How are we going to get around with? I don't know. We kind of bulletproofed them pretty good. We didn't want to deal with this shit ourselves.
That's right. That's right. It's like high schools make rules though. Based on the seniors before. There are now new rules in that high school. There are new rules because those seniors did things that the previous seniors had never done before.
Yes.
Right.
This
They're
is
just
where
there.
the
There's
party
a whole-
discovers the law of unintended consequences.
There's
Right.
a whole
That's why-
Thanks.
technique set within history as a discipline where historians will try to figure out problems that were facing a society at a particular time based on the rules that they made. So if you've got a colony in the New World and the first rule you write down is you cannot run off and join the Indians, then the problem of that colony was definitely people running off and joining the Indians, right? Like that That was a deal. That was some problem for them.
Well,
So
this
that's what
is
you can do. You just look at how the GM is reacting, and that will give you a sense of what problems they were dealing with.
and come on, we've all seen the memes where somebody is somewhere and they take a picture of some really weirdly specific safety warning. And you just know that there's a reason behind why this weirdly specific safety warning
Yeah.
has been posted.
Do
And
not put this in
you
your
don't
mouth.
want you don't want to know the story, but you kind of do, but you just know you don't.
No, anything that says
So-
do not put this in your mouth. Yeah.
Yeah.
Do not apply
Somebody did.
rectally.
That's right.
So my majestic waterland. Now imagine 30 years of this. And I'm not saying I keep the greatest notes in the world, but I keep sufficient notes. So I got places in my majestic waterland where this trashing didn't happen once, but like a dozen times. There's a reason why the city guards in my city state walk around with night killer crossbows in their kit, because there was a campaign where the players went, what would be neat if we played the city guards? Okay, let's see. And they played low level city guard, and they developed a tactical doctrine, and they looked at the rules that we were using at the time and said, if we get a max draw crossbow and we can carry it cocked for the entire length of our patrol, so we don't have to winch it up, we only get one shot. But if we all fire it at once, only like half of us are going to hit. But when they hit, they're going to lose half their hit points. And then the fight really becomes a lot easier. And they did little stuff like this, and you keep layering on this stuff, layering it. And soon, you got this city state, this region that, that kind of have this own truth, so to speak.
So one of the things that I think doesn't help is that players are so mono-focused on their little universe and what they're doing in their little universe that they don't think about larger pictures, right? So, one of the great things about T1 as a module is that it really does give you an idea of this microcosm, and the wizard and the fighter are there to sort of build this little outpost and set up regular patrols and so on and so forth. And at one point, I'm going to sort of side rail, but come back real quick. At one point, Games Workshop was working on an MMO with a partner. And what they came up with, what they recognized is the problem with most MMOs is there's just a spawn point, right? Where the monster comes up and then it gets killed. And a little while later, the monster comes back up and another group kills it. And another monster, it's just endless, right? Mm-hmm. But the way they wanted to address it was they essentially had like a pathing, right? So imagine like an oval around your view screen or whatever you're watching this on. And that like there's a spawning point that goes and spits out a goblin. And the goblin goes through that loop. It goes in that sort of oval. And if nobody makes contact with the goblin, it spits out another goblin. And now there's 2 goblins. And this goes on until there's 5. And then it spits out an orc and a few more orcs. And once it gets to a certain critical mass, it stops and it goes in the center of that path. And they start to create a village. And then everything from the spawning point just goes to the village, and it gets stronger and stronger and bigger and bigger. And the longer the problem is not addressed, the tougher the nut to crack. And when I heard this 20 odd years ago, I thought to myself, one of the things that we always hear about is the Companions series of modules, because they had a very intricate system. They had a very clearly defined path of what was going to happen, what the bad guys were doing behind the scenes if the party dilly-dallied or the party didn't do anything or the party just was like, whatever. But when you take what the Companions laid out in the early 80s and you take this notion of the problem just metastasizes if you leave it alone for too long, I think player agency, they need to have, they're always like, we want to kill the monsters and we want to get the treasure, and they're not paying attention to the peripherals. And I think that if you really want to sort of up the game as it is, they have to be more aware of the environment. They have to be more aware of what's going on around them and so on and so forth. So I'm sorry for the long-winded piece, but I wanted to sort of inject that.
Oh, definitely.
I just
God,
think
I
about
put
the
them all to
nightmare of
sleep.
keeping track of all those.
No.
You know, but you're running. You got to keep track of a lot of stuff in that, Jim.
You do, and
Yeah.
I think one of the most interesting things that I ran into at GaryCon this year is I was in a Mike Merrill's game where he's using a new mechanic. He's playing around with a new mechanic and he's trying it out. And as time goes by, instead of X number of turns, you roll on this table of random encounters. There's modifiers, and the longer you go, the more certainty you're going to have an encounter, and depending on how you roll will determine the severity of the encounter. And it made things interesting. It made things unusual. I applaud the game master that has enough time to plot out some sort of intricate, timeline and this is going to happen and so on. I don't think everybody has the time to do that, but I think you can address some of that, right, with, I'll call it, for lack of better words, a neglect table, right? That you have a list of 20 potential problems. You roll and decide which one of the problems is going to be in X, and this is for you, Rob, in hex A or hex C or hex D, and you decide what those are. But then you then know what those problems are, and then there's separate tables. There's like short 1 to 6 tables for each of those, where the longer it goes, the worse the problem gets. And then when the party blunders into it, you can say, well, it's been 3 months, and by the end of 3 months, it's going to be this. It might be a dragon that got, it might be a hatching dragon that's sort of hungry and just eating one cow. But 6 months from now, it's learning how to fly and it's eating a whole damn herd. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's a DEFCON system. It's slowly escalating.
Yes.
Where if you're not paying attention.
Yes. If you don't have regular patrols, if you're not going out in if you're feeling fat and sassy because you killed the big bad and you're going to hole up for winter in your castle, well, that's great. But you better be prepared, because when the spring thaw hits, you're going to have a whole countryside full of problems.
Yep. And that's some advanced DMing, though. I mean, that is really that's something that a DM has to keep in mind amongst the 20 other things that they're.
Well, and I think being a good game master is like the guy in the circus that's spinning plates on sticks, right? The forefront is, number one, you got to make sure your party's having a good time. And that they're creating a story that when they're not playing, they're talking about it. And you have to have something. I think we've all been in games where mechanics are too awful, like they're an onerous burden on the game, and they leech all the fun out of it. It's one reason why I probably never really took a big shine to Pathfinder, is that I have enough books. I don't need 30 more for a comprehensive rule set. And that's an exaggeration, but I'll stick with it.
You're not much.
What if you have home defense needs, Jim? You might need one weapon.
I'm good.
You could push the tower over on top of an attacker. There's all kinds of use for those books.
Well, I think you can have specific scenarios, right? Like I knew somebody that ran a very large, complicated, intricate D&D game, but when it finally came down for the good guys to have the big field battle with the bad guys, he literally did it in Warhammer. And so, one side was the humans and an alliance of high elves and so on. And on the other side, it was orcs and goblins and so on and so forth. And he gave everybody units, and he gave them very simplified, you need to roll this, you need to do this, blah, blah, blah. And he essentially refereed the game. But I think it comes back to, there's storytelling in an RPG, and then there's player decision, not urgency, but player agency. And I think you want to give the players the ability to influence the major decisions and so on and so forth. But there's also, like, I hate to call it railroading or so on, but there's specific story elements, right? That between A and B, you're going to have this, but that's what gives them the motivation to understand why B is important and so on and so forth. Is that what you mean, Chubby? I'm sorry.
Yeah, kind of. I mean, it's just there's a lot of kind of maintenance and headspace that goes with either a lot of rules or keeping track of side things like that or whatever. And I don't know. I've gotten to the point now. I can't even pull like an old card because I'm the youngest one here. But like I've just gotten to the point where I don't want to bother with tracking stuff that I know won't deliver the goods for me. Like so.
Sure.
One of the things that I've really enjoyed about Shadow Dark that I never would have seen coming is the initiative, roll initiative. It goes to the highest person, and then you just go clockwise from there. It doesn't matter what everybody who got second place and beyond got. You go clockwise from the person who rolled the highest initiative. It saves, let's say, 1 or 2 minutes per combat, but then that adds up to a lot of time.
Yeah.
And now you start thinking about, how much time are you losing tracking encumbrance in this system? How much time are you losing tracking light sources? How much time are you losing tracking this and that? And I just, as I get older, I'm like, let's just go with the shortest, simplest shit. I don't got time for this.
I think the best role playing, the best sessions of role playing are keep it simple, stupid, where you're rolling dice for things that matter, but the rest of this stuff that's just I hate to call it, but it's like a weight belt. It's like a weight belt divers use to get to the bottom of the ocean, and frankly, it's just stopping you from going back up and having a good time. And I think, we talk about Shadow Dark a lot, but Shadow Dark said, do we need this? No. Do we need this? No. And this is that scene, the great race about the two Formula One drivers in the 70s, Hunt, and I can't think of his other name, but he essentially bought his way into Formula One. And what he did is he sat down, he goes with the mechanics and he goes to the car, and he's just ripping shit out of the car, and he's taking the heavy stuff out and he's replacing it with lighter material, and he gets all this weight down until he's got a car that's 2.5 seconds faster around the track than the other one that's supposed to be identical. And I think, again, you nailed it. You absolutely nailed it. Like, the reason Shadow Dark is fun to play is because your head isn't swimming with non-essential bullshit. You're just focused on having a good time.
Well, you kind of hit on the problem. Shadow Dark, I know I'm sounding like a dissonant Shadow Dark, but Shadow Dark's solution is to take a very well-designed minimalist system and then simplify the situation around it. And whereas what I want to do with my sandbox stuff is I want to teach people how to manage that information up to the complexity level they want, no more. Just whatever level of detail. So if you want to do Shadow Dark level of detail, that's fine. If you want to go the full Harn route, where every farthing is accounted for, sure. But whatever your chosen level, you still got to manage the information. And that's where I don't think people have a lot of good tools to do, because I don't track everything in my Majestic Waterland. I only track the things that are in the player's immediate social circle. Now, that's broader geographically than what you think, but in terms of number of NPCs and what they're doing, I have to track. There's only going to be a limited subset of everybody who's living in that moment in time that I have to bother with. Like me, I'll have notes on the Overlord, sure, but I don't keep track of what every Overlord minion do. I keep track of whoever. Greg played a Viking friend. His family had a contact in the Overlord's court. I only kept track of that guy, and so that way I kept the information manageable for me to run during the week. And overall, Greg, you played in that campaign. What was your impression? Did City State feel like a living, breathing place to you, full of people?
Yeah, I mean, I think that you can do it on the fly in the moment for a particular, you don't have to know every character and all this stuff. You can kind of introduce it all, but you also can't do that and simultaneously have the level of detail from like a Quantum Ogre perspective that everything exists already, so the players are making choice. Sometimes things are going to be created that would, because they pick, it doesn't matter whether they picked this choice or that choice, because you're rolling off of a table, you're going to have had that encounter where whichever direction they go. And I can see a problem with that from a philosophical perspective if it gets too much. But I do think a lot of times you can get with, you make a random encounter roll or whatever, and then you just build out of that. So
Well, you have to.
we're walking around the city. Like we're walking around the city. You make a roll, and we have this encounter on the street, and then that introduces new characters into the game, and it feels like we're meeting random. We're meeting new people. But it is an illusion in a sense, because if at any point we said, "Hey, I want to talk to that guy over there," it would then have to be created as well. That guy is a unknown quantity to Rob. It's always going to be an unknown quantity to me as the player, but if it's an unknown quantity to you as the GM, then that is a different dynamic in a sense. I had a great time in City State. I'm not complaining at all. I'm just saying there is only so much you can do with prepping also.
Yes. So the answer to your question is, I didn't just use any old random table. I had a random table that I've used for years with City State, because even though I didn't make it, of course, it's from Harn, but I used that table because it fit my conception of City State. And if it didn't, I would have modified it and made one. I don't use that table for Verdistan. You guys never went there, but that's another City State in my campaign. I use a different set of tables for that, and I designed that table to reflect the life of the city. So if you're walking down the street and you say "hey" to the guy, it's going to feel like somebody that random result is going to feel like a guy who belongs in the City State. And you're right, it is quote illusion, but it really isn't. I just foisted off the design of that encounter to a just-in-time setup that actually reflects the reality of City State. It's like you go down to New York City. My wife and I went with Eric and Joe to New York City, and you look around you see there's 100 people within eyesight in any one spot. To your point of view, these are all random encounters. But if
we were running a module, they would be named NPCs with specific stories. That's what I'm saying. There is a dynamic there.
I don't know if I agree with that, because I'm sorry. So I would see this as there's just a gigantic pool of NPCs, and then if the characters have an interaction, that's when you sort of have to be ready to take them from the sea of toy soldiers, little green army men, and suddenly now they actually have to become something.
Right, and you just don't start off with a generic set of toy soldiers. You have, if you know the group is going to spend any length of times in the area, you take a little time to change that pool of choice soldiers to one that reflects how that works. The city of Warwick is going to be different from City State, which is going to be different from Thunderhold, which is going to be different from Modron. And so you just tailor your random prep, and all you're worried about is making a table different. You don't have to detail 1,000 inhabitants. Just detail that table, and that's a lot easier for prep for a weekly game than it is generating 1,000.
I'm always reminded, we had a player one time that was obsessed. We had managed to kill this extremely strong owlbear, and he was obsessed with getting the pelt treated in some way to captures, in theory, some magical qualities. And as painful as that exposition is, the thing that saved all of us from the brink of despair, because as soon as we got to a city, he was just, I want to hunt down somebody who can deal with this or whatever. The DM on the fly created the level 17 gnomish laundromancer who was able to take care of all of his pelt needs. And the DM just riffed it off, right? And the laundromancer's name was Scribbles and blah, 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 blah. But it took what was one player's agency just disrupting the whole party with his pelt obsession and turned it into an hysterical encounter just before a break that gave us all this breath of fresh air and took the whole issue off of the table, right? That Scribbles was like, yeah, I got no problem, boss. I can do that. Just drop it off and come back. Just go. Well, what about just go, get out, go, and save the day?
So what I would have done in that situation, Jim, I would not have the list fleshed out, but I have a fantasy demographics chart. And
Sure.
I would have rolled it up for the town, stuck it in my note, a single list, nothing, and I would have detailed 4 or 5 items. But I guarantee you that whoever can deal with an owl bear skin wouldn't have been on that list, wouldn't have been fleshed out because it's not a common thing.
Right.
So what would happen is the player grabs the owl bear pelt. He goes back to town. So I go down list. They're like a leather crafter or an arcane shop they could deal with, yes or no. So let's just say I say no. But this town doesn't exist in a vacuum. It's got merchants. Merchants talk to other merchants. So somewhere in the region, there's somebody. So I would just take my fantasy demographic, look at all the other charts I made, which are not fleshed out, but I would find that shop, that one line that says leather crafter or arcana, and I would say, okay, that's the guy who can handle it. And then so the player at first would be frustrated that he couldn't find a shop in town, but then he would quickly catch on that merchants talk to other merchants. So he would say, do you know anybody else elsewhere? Oh, yes. There's nobody here in Modron, but if you go down to Goodnap, there's this guy. Oh, there's this guy. And of course, he's going to spend the rest of the session begging the party to take him down the Goodnap. And you might go, fine, we'll go to Goodnap. And then we have a little adventure going to Goodnap, but he'll still get his owl bear pelt.
I'm curious, Chubby. So when do you really sort of differentiate between one-offs and campaigns? I mean, when you're talking about tables and so on, I feel like we sort of side railed you, and I didn't mean to.
No, to me, one of the things that I actually get critical of Eric about, we get into, is quantum ogre issues. That I'm really big on, if the players are making choices, they need to really matter. And so I roll this kind of stuff ahead of time as rumors, basically.
Yep.
And then the rumor, so if you roll this rumor, it may be true or may not be true, but at least now you're acting based on information. Whereas if you're just randomly picking between 2 different options and then a random chart is determining the outcome, then the world, it's easy on the GM to do that. I certainly agree with that. It's quicker. There's all sorts of advantages of it. But it means that when the players make a choice to do one thing or the other thing, it doesn't really matter because it's all going to be determined by these charts. If I decide to take the high street instead of Market Street down City State, and you're rolling the encounter off the same table, and I'm not really making a decision, that one time is not a big deal. But what happens is eventually I've seen players realize that what's going to happen is going to happen, and then they stop even in trying to find out information to make decisions, because wherever they go, there will be something and there will be resolution. They don't need to think ahead of time. That's my quantum ogre criticism. And so, a lot of times we end up, just like with free speech and other stuff, you end up fighting over edge cases.
Right.
And I get that, right? Like, this might be an edge case, but from a principles perspective, I prefer that the players have information before things are randomly decided than after they're randomly decided. So I'd much rather have rumors that something is down this street and something is down that street. And then when you make that choice, you get a different encounter table, so that your decision to take one street over the other has import. That's my basic philosophical position.
So what I do to get around that, Greg, is a couple of things. First of all, as I said before, I tailor my random encounters. Now I guarantee you, though, I won't have a different encounter table per street.
Yeah,
But
I know.
but what I do, I cheat. See, I don't always roll on the encounter table because I know I have been at this long enough to know if I did nothing but be consistent like that, um, the players will spot the pattern. There isn't a random. Well, there are random encounter tables where you can't spot the pattern, but they're so wieldy to use in actual play, they don't matter. Any random encounter table you can use at the table, you are absolutely right, Greg. You would spot the pattern. So I don't roll half the time.
Well,
I
your
will
campaign is actually a really good example. Let me praise you here for a second. So, in that campaign, especially after we left the city, we got to a point where we were seriously planning things out very far in advance. Where are we going to go in this ship, right? What's going to happen? And everybody in that game knew that if we chose to sail to this place or that place, it would have a massive impact. If we chose to curry favor with this guy to help me take the throne, or that guy to help me take the throne, it would have a huge impact. Right. But in a lot of people's games, it's like a video gamey type aspect where it doesn't matter if you choose A or B. If you go to A, you're going to get an army of swordsmen. If you go to B, you're going to get an army of axemen, but you're going to have enough people to take over the next place at C. We had no guarantee of that in your game. Like when we were making decisions about it, there was some city on the river where it was like, are we gonna take a night here in port, or what are we gonna do? And me and Tim and Joe, we had serious discussions about, like, if we start getting involved in this, then it can go badly. And one of the things I remember saying a lot is they would come up with some plan for how to do it stealthily, and I go, that's going to survive the first 2 stealth checks, and then we're going to fail a stealth check, and then we're going to have to come up with a plan to kill all these people because your stealthy plan ain't going to work for shit, right? And so that was constantly in your campaign. We were going, okay, well,
let me interrupt you for a second.
Your world seriously. That's a big credit to you.
Well, wait a minute. There's one detail that the audience need to know. When they said they have to make stealth checks, this is not theater of the mind. I would have a map, either of my own design or one of the Harm map, and in Roll20, I would have laid out the entire castle. It's not that hard. It takes me about 5 stat blocks to populate an entire castle full of people. So they would really have to go in there and really have to style. And Greg knows that, and he knows that he's only 2 stealth checks away.
That's right. It could go bad just like that. And I was like, you guys are like, well, we're going to sneak past here. We're going to go up the steps, and then we're going to come around here. And I'm like, until you roll a 5, and then we're going to have to kill everyone in this whole place. And we were at level 6 and 7. I mean, we could kill a lot of people. And I was like, let's not get into that. And that's the thing that happens because we took it seriously. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, if you don't take things seriously and you're generating stuff off of random tables every time, the players stop focusing like to that degree, and they go, well, let's go to this place. We'll make something will happen and we'll move on. But we knew that everybody you were managing was like a real person, that all those decisions were important.
Right. And so this is a quirk about me when I run campaigns.
There's more than one, but go on.
Good one, Greg. That point is to you. Okay, so and I'm going to say the word. I did LARP as my main
Oh,
source of role playing for
bingo.
Bingo card, LARP.
Bingo cards are marked off.
Oh my God, I gotta
I
take a
did
drink.
LARP for 15 years, and the LARPs are not very realistic. The two things they do very, very well is many on many role playing, where you have every 20 people role playing among each other, each is an individual character. That's something that we don't have in tabletop much. And then the other thing is it makes you keenly aware, it's situational awareness. The combat's not particularly realistic. We got foam storage, we're throwing bean bags for spells, but the fact that you're there in a clearing, the fact that you're in a corridor, trying to check out a door where there's monsters behind it, that absolutely immerses you. And so that left me with a very sense of how important situational awareness, and it made me realize I can use that to improve how I run my tabletop campaign. So my goal after that was basically is to make the players feel like they actually visited my setting. I'm not saying I've always succeeded, but I tried to give them the situational awareness of what they would know at their character. And a lot of it is actually just simply be more generous than what you think you ought to be, because you really do. Once I experienced playing the LARP, I realized if I was actually having these adventures in my character, I would be seeing and hearing a lot more than what the rule books usually give you credit for. So I started doing that. I mean, Greg, how often did you feel like you lacked for information or didn't have a sense about where
Yeah,
you
that was
were?
good. And that's what the reason why I bring it up is that there have been in a lot of cases where you just don't have that information, right? And when we did the playtest of Terra Invictus, it got to a point where Joe was like, there's just too many things on this list of rumors for us to investigate. I don't know what to do. Maybe so. I think so. You can go too far, at least with
Oh yes.
Joe type players. But you also, if you don't provide that, you provided a lot of hooks for us to choose between. And I think a lot of times people don't do that, and they rely on the random generation exclusively,
Well,
right?
and another thing about the hooks I provide, I tried to pay attention to what you guys were focusing on, because I had players get overwhelmed. Heck, it just happened in my game 3 weeks ago that I'm running in the Majestic Fantasy Realm. They went over this mountain path, and there was something happening in the village in the town of Visby. There was something happening in the town of Hoxley, and then there was something happening in the mountain path with Hill Giant. Meanwhile, they were just trying to get over the mountain path to uh, the Forsaken Desert to deal with these dark elves. But the thing is, I wasn't like throwing it into fate. They were just choosing to pay attention to these tavern rumors. I just happened handily, yeah, you overhear these bunch of merchants, they're complaining about the hill giants waylaying their caravan. And immediately one of the players started asking questions, and now it's in their intention. And finally it got to the point where one of the players said, wait a minute, we don't have to deal with this. Rob is not going to care if we ignore these. He's kind of being out of game with it. We can just head over to the mountain path. And then they talked about it. Let's deal with the hill giant. We can just kill him, get some loot, and get a good fight out of it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, that venture didn't turn out quite the way they expected, but nonetheless, that was they managed to figure out how to deal with being overwhelmed with information by ignoring stuff. And I'm okay with that. Just because that's one thing that I try to make clear out of game to players. Just because I mention something in the background doesn't mean you have to pay attention. It's there if you want to pursue it, but it's completely up to you. And it might not be, it will definitely not be as significant as you think it may be just because I said it. I hope that makes sense.
I'm still trying to get over your use of LARP.
Don't listen. We're already
It just makes me
at
feel
nearly a
dirty.
quarter after 10.
Ew.
Yeah.
If
Lightning bolt.
if we,
Sorry.
I owned a chapter, Jim. I owned a chapter. I ran events for years. That's how deep I was in it, and I wouldn't trade it.
it's how he met his wife. But we listen. This is that's a whole episode we can go into.
Oh, you guys would never devote a whole episode. It would be a whole episode making fun of Rob while I tell my LARP stories.
Oh yeah, well, Rob. What?
I'm not going to say you're wrong.
I'm just saying.
And you know
I
what?
think it would
You know,
be-
the LARP players are actually a bit snobbish of tabletop because they
No,
they
you
don't
say.
think you tabletop guys can handle a LARP.
I will say this, right? There's clearly a very different dynamic, but I mean, come on. I remember 95, 96, 97 at Gen Con when we were under siege by Vampire the Masquerade LARP players, and there were just mopey guys in trench coats walking around doing this because you couldn't see them. And
Well, you know the geek hierarchies and furries are at the bottom. Well, let's just say in the LARP world, the vampire guys weren't really well thought of. The LARP that I participated was known as a boffer LARP. It's called Nero, and it was just as much as a sport as it was D&D in the wood. So we had some incredibly and physically talented guys participate in the chapter, and so it's a little bit of a different experience. But then again, it's putting on, it's being in the woods in costume with people, and some of the people are in makeup looking like elves and orcs and stuff. So yeah, I mean, you could roll your eyes at it. It's still a roll your eyes.
It's the vision of Rob in a crushed velvet frock with a bunch of rings and a cane. And...
Hey, laddie. No. I wore the full 9-yard kilt with the tam, armor, wielding a battle axe. And I took no shit from anybody. I'm not going to take shit from here.
You know,
I don't think that there's a finer place for us to end this night than with Rob doing a Scottish accent. I think that I think that it's a pinnacle we're not going to touch on again. Hopefully, gonna throw it out there. Reminder for folks that Rob's Kickstarter, what, 2 weeks, week and a half. 10 cards.
I gotta say something. Bad Mike, you will never catch me in a goddamn vampire LARP. I'm sorry to say. I'm not going to do that rock, paper, scissors shit that they do. No, if I'm going to play in a LARP, I'm going to get to beat people.
Oh, we still have to see the video with you and Joe.
Yes,
right?
You show that.
I've heard tales, but so far,
when he interviews you, can you not say, "Look, it's a thing"? You got to play the video when he interviews you.
Yeah, you got to play the video.
I
don't have the video.
Let me just say that I'd far rather hear tales than see tales. I want to go on record.
No, not those kind of
Thank
tales. But yeah, all right. On that note, I told you before, and is that
it
bigger?
is. I told you they get bigger as they go. These X cards.
Jim, thank you for dropping in, joining us. It's like a Marvel crossover, or is it like DC and Marvel team up? Just throwing it out there. Thank you to Death Angel for sending us a nice little tip. Other than that, very lively chat. Thank you. We, as usual, went in random directions. This is like a hex crawl or a sandbox. So
2.5 mile or 5 mile hex. It's important.
if
you're LARPing, it's 5.
No, if it's LARPing, you're actually hauling your ass over 5 miles. And I have done that. Believe me, it's not fun in gear, but I've done it. Shit.
I'm not highlighting any of Mike's other stuff. He should get banned from the chat. That's all I'm gonna say. Mike should get banned from the chat. Bad Mike.
Anyway.
if you are wrapping up, Eric, I want to leave a public service announcement out there for the kiddies this week. As you're out there in your role playing games, committing your thefts, committing your murders, just remember not to do anything that might make someone feel bad in their feels. All right, go, Eric.
So if you don't have an X card, you can do a Y card, as in why am I in this game? But in any case, next live stream is tomorrow night. We got next Wednesday special guests. We got some Gygaxes to talk about a certain convention coming up in July. It should be a lot of fun. So, be safe, be well. God bless. Roll those dice. Roll them well.